All right, club jump in. Harry Parker here. Listen, guys, I've got an incredible guest today. Dan, BC. We're at Paris Valley skydiving. We're just wrapping up the P3 100-way camps. It's been an awesome week. Everybody's super tired. I'm really lucky to have this guy here. I'm just going to jump into the questions, so bear with me for a second. Here you go, the man, the legend of skydiving, Dan, BC. Thank you so much for being here with us today. And nobody like I got a buddy, Brandon, back at Skydive New England, and he helped write these questions. So I know that we're on the edge here. Everybody's exhausted, and more than anything, you probably just want to get a beer and go home. So I'm going to make this really quick. So question number one, and above all else, you talk about training hard and pushing past those plateaus with your teams. Skydiving is particularly exciting when we feel that we're doing it well, and it becomes a challenge to work through those dips in progression, as everybody's felt. What advice, mental or physical, could you give people who are hitting that plateau and getting frustrated with slowed progress?
One of the greatest things about skydiving is that the better you get, the more that you learn how to do, the more fun it is. Every new move that you learn, every new thing that you can do just increases the fun exponentially. So as soon as you're not feeling like you're advancing, it's still fun, but it's not as much fun as when you really have that. And I think the priority in order to keep that same progression going is having very clear goals. What is it? Not just the random, I'm trying to be better. Not just that vague, I want to be better. But to have very clear goals. What is it you want to do better? What's the best plan to make that improvement? What small steps do you have to take to get you to where that you want to be? And while you're going through this, map out a very clear plan with very specific goals. And also understanding that you're probably going to take 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, all the way. It's never, no matter how well you plan it, it's never just better, 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 better the whole way through.
So we say sticking to the ultimate goal, never losing track of what you originally committed to?
And not necessarily you have your ultimate goal out there, but it's very often the ultimate goal is so far out that it's hard to really believe in it. You want to aim for it, you want to go that direction, but you also have to pick the smaller goals that you can sink your teeth into and that you can do that jump that day, right here on this jump. What's my goal? What am I trying to do? What things am I trying to improve now? And get a coach or someone who can help you pick out the right goals and map out the right plan of how you want to work your progression.
Yeah, we've had a lot of younger jumpers. We actually had a 4-way team make nationals last year. And I mean, each of them had, including the cameraman, they only had like 100 jumps each. And they really had a great time. But it was hard for them to actually explain that to other jumpers to get them excited about it. And I think this is where this other question comes from. He says, Brandon asks, it seems that nationals is an intimidating concept to most younger jumpers. What would you say to those thinking about going, particularly those with less than 300 jumps or so? Should they go? What should their expectations be at that level?
It's only an intimidating concept if you want it to be. I mean, you're competing at the nationals. You're competing against yourself, and you really can pick your own goals. Some people are at the nationals and they're there to win. They're planning to win. They did 800 practice jumps. They sold everything they owned so they could pour their efforts and money and everything into training, and they know who the competition is, and they're there to win. That's their goal. It's one experience for them. It's a whole different experience when you just grab, I mean, I'll show up at the nationals now and just grab 3 other friends and get together and do some jumps, and we don't do anywhere near as well as we would have done had we been training, but we don't care. It's just great to get together with the friends, have a good time, do the best jumps you can do, and that's my goal. I used to be the one there, and my whole life depended on whether we won or not, or at least I thought it did at the moment. And now it's completely different, and it's the same for whoever's going. It's whatever goal you want it to be. If you've put any kind of a team together, if you've made any practice jumps at all, then it's nice to have some understanding of what your best is. What's the best that you can expect
in a competitive environment?
Sure, but to pick that out. So you did 10 practice jumps. Well, it's better than nothing, but it's only 10 jumps. So pick out let's give ourselves something to aim for. Just 'cause it's fun to push yourselves. It has nothing to do with placement. It has nothing to do with how any of the other teams are doing. But, you even in 10 jumps, 20 jumps, 5 jumps, 30 jumps, whatever it is, you've gotten some idea of how that's going. And it's nice to go to the meet and say, you know what, let's try to do the best that we can do. and define what that is, so you have some kind of a clear goal and clear target, and it's just more fun that way. But not that it really matters or that anybody really cares.
Yeah, they came in our team. It was called Team Foreplay. Scott of New England last year. They came in last place, and I think they had more fun than anybody. And that was my whole thing to them, is like, dude, that's all that matters. If you're going out there having fun, biggest thing I think at that age, they're learning what it means to be in competition. They learn the whole system. They can come back a couple years later, and they've got an edge. And
it's nice to see that whole, the whole brotherhood that we have as skydivers, for all skydivers, is really, really something that's special. And I'm fortunate enough to be a part of many different aspects of skydiving and see the really big family, the big brotherhood we have. But then there's also the breakdown of that. Then there's the competitors. Then there's the instructors. Then there's, the DZ managers, and who they're all part of the same big club, but then they have their own group, and it's nice to go see that group. A big thing that's fun about the Nationals is then you get all the people who have some kind of competitive bone in their body that like to be there, whether they've practiced or not, it doesn't matter, but they all show up there, and it's another special small branch of the whole skydiving community that we have. It's great fun.
It's what's powered me.
Set the goal for yourself, and then gives you something to go for.
It's definitely what's powered me through all these years. Both Dan and USPA agree, I'm assuming here, visualizations are critically important to successful skydives. Can you explain in some detail what visualization is like for you? Do you picture every second from exit until deployment? And when jumping with newer jumpers, sometimes these visualizations fall apart when an exit is funneled, someone brain locked, etc. How effective can visualization be when things go awry in reality like that?
Well, visualization is not just for skydiving. I mean, visualization is a tool that all athletes use, and not just athletes, but people who are trying to perform their best at anything that they do. The more that you can, we generally have very little time to be on the actual playing field, for lack of a better term, that we get the on-court practice. And in skydiving, it's the worst. In skydiving, the actual playing time that we have is what, 50 seconds at a time. And then you got to wait another 30 minutes, if you're lucky, before you get another 50 seconds. But whatever it is, and visualization is a skill that you have to learn. It's not just, I'm sitting here thinking about the jump. That's visualization, but it's very poor visualization. Good visualization is when you've learned the skill of being able to actually create the exact pictures, the exact images in your mind that you expect and want to see in the air.
You're good.
And not just visually, but being able to feel what the moves are going to feel like, to the mood of the jump, the emotional feeling of it as well. And that's a skill that you have to practice. If you're not very good at this skill, then it's not going to do you as much good to do the visualization. I practiced it and practiced it and practiced it doing all the years of competition, where I could see things perfectly. I could see them perfectly in my head. And it gave me more repetitions on having done it. It was like, if I was visualizing, if I had done 100 jumps, it was like I did 1,000, because I had that many more repetitions on it. And it also prepares you to handle those things when they go wrong. When they go wrong, you can return back to the good visualization you had, as long as you don't freak out when it goes wrong. If you just stop when things go awry and take a breath, calm down, go back to where you were, then you can handle it. The problem is with recovering from incidences like that on jumps. The problem, it's not the accident, the breakdown itself usually doesn't take that long. It's how people respond to that breakdown that takes so long. You can have somebody have a brain lock. You can have somebody have a funnel. You can run into each other on the jump. That in itself only took a second, or maybe 2 seconds. But then if we all panic, it takes another 20 seconds.
Getting this guy
right? So it's how we respond to that, not what happened on its own.
I noticed that for myself, personally, my experience of visualization takes a lot. As someone who's ADD, as soon as I start a visualization sequence on jump on the ride at altitude, my eyes are open. I'm thinking about something. I got to stop. I got to go back, and it's definitely a learned response. I mean, even on the camera team, our exits and what we're trying to get for you as the organizers, I run it through my head. What is the picture that I want to look like? And I find that it helps a lot.
And sometimes you're visualizing, and then these other you know, these other creature thoughts creep into your head and totally screw you up. It's like, that's not, where'd that come from?
Right.
That wasn't in my plan, you know, and you just have to maintain your sense of humor about it. Sometimes shut it off, start again. Sometimes practice recovering from your own visualization when that happens.
Right.
But you can practice it all.
All right, next question. The tunnel is relatively new to our sport, and it seems that those with a lot of tunnel time can fly circles around others with the same jump numbers and little tunnel time. Assuming a typical tunnel session is 2 minutes, how many skydives do you think that's equivalent to keeping in mind that you can get in and out of the tunnel much faster than you can jump, land, and jump again?
It all depends exactly what you're practicing. If you're if you want to learn how to track off from a big way, tunnel doesn't do you much good. And it depends how you're using the tunnel too. I see a lot of people get in the tunnel and fly around, but really waste a lot of time. You need to have just like what we talked about before, you have to have a very specific list of goals you're trying to accomplish, a very clear plan on how you're gonna accomplish them, so you're using every second that you have in the tunnel really well. And you can build the skills, you can build the flying skills quicker in the tunnel, but there's a lot of things in the tunnel that you can't build, and that is the awareness. So much of skydiving is awareness. If you see everything, you'll respond. And people have the flying skill to respond correctly if they're aware of what they need to respond to. And in the tunnel, it's such a sterile little environment that you don't need that much awareness. You can use the wall. You know, there's not that, people can't lose too much altitude or lose too much distance. You know, it holds you right there, so it's easy to take that for granted, and then you get in the air and it's a whole other story. So there's things that you train in the tunnel which are mostly the individual flying moves, but those don't always translate right to the air. There's things that you can only practice and practice really well in the air. Well, decide specifically what you want to use it for. There's a lot you can do in there. You can really learn the body mechanics of free fall and of flight. You can improve your own individual skills dramatically. There's tunnel instructors who can do things in the tunnel that I can't even possibly dream of. But those things don't always translate exactly to the air. There's only so much you can train in the tunnel. You know, for instance, we have guys who are tunnel instructors who are fantastic. Their free fall skills are out of this world. They haven't jumped yet, and they want to do AFF. And they're like, well, can I do this in, you know, can I just do it in 2 or 3 jumps? Because I've already got all the free fall skills. And they don't realize that it's not all about just those individual skills. There's much more to skydiving than that. There's the awareness that it takes to see what's going on. There's the quick decision making. There's the you know, being aware, altitude awareness, as well as the spatial awareness that you have to have. And I think the same thing happens with people at a higher level. They get their own individual skills, so they're sharp. They can move sharp. They can move fast. Then you throw them on 4-ways, and you have 4 guys, each moving sharp and moving fast, but not doing it together. Not looking like a team, not in sync together. And some of that you can train in the tunnel, and some of it you have to have the airtime for. 4-way is easier to do. 8-way is harder to do. Big ways you can do a little bit of in the tunnel to gain the skills, but then you have to have much broader awareness. You need to have much more space to use.
The discipline on tracking, just the safety issues. Oh, it just makes everything huge.
So the tunnel is a great tool, and people can accelerate very quickly, but it is not the one and only tool that you're going to need.
So specifics, train for specifics in the tunnel, but get your airtime as a team out of the airplane.
And recognize what you're missing in the tunnel. You know what you don't get in there, because if you don't get it, it usually is a negative. You know, like you don't train altitude awareness in the tunnel. Usually you go in for 2 minutes at a time. Well, since you didn't train that, now you have still created some kind of habit, some kind of an instinct. And right now, that habit, that instinct, thinks free fall lasts for 2 minutes.
Wow, right? That's so really interesting.
Well, I mean, you might not have intentionally done that, but you're accustomed to free fall being 90 seconds being 2 minutes. Well, you better be aware that that time's going to go by way quicker in the air. So you need to realize what you're not doing and make sure you take care of it when you're actually skydiving. That's just one example of that.
Perfect. All right. Coaching becomes more and more necessary as people get past the initial hurdles of flying their bodies. Assuming money is an issue, which it is for most, At what point would you recommend people start thinking about paying for some serious coaching? And how do you find your coach?
I think ideally you find a coach who can give you a plan. You don't need a coach to hold your hand every step of the way. I mean, if you've got unlimited funds, grab somebody for sure, and grab whoever you can talk to other people, see who everyone else has had real success with, and pay them. For most people, that's not the situation that they're in. More than anything, what I think a good coach can do is outline a plan for you. Here's the level you're at. Here's where you want to get. What's the most efficient way to get there? What steps should I take? One goal at a time, bit by bit, to get there. How long should I expect it to take? What other tools do I need? And have the coach kind of map that out for you so you have a good understanding of it and you can proceed largely on your own or with the people that you're jumping with. And then, checking in with that coach to oversee it any chance that you can. I think too often people hire a coach for a day to teach them specific things, and they get those specific things, but they still don't have a long-term plan, a long-term goal. Then they don't know what to do with this one thing that they learned. I think it's more important to have this long plan.
So find a coach that can actually help you kind of map out your goals and give you checkpoints, and then so where you can get the guy to come back and review you and.
Yeah, and if he can, if it's at your local drop zone and he's there, there's a lot of people who we have here that we're not coaching them for the day as a hired coach, but we're on the drop zone.
Right.
I see them creep. I see them walk in the debrief. I see them on the airplane. I can't help myself. And this is how most of the people, here at Paris are. So they get input. We know what their goals are. So that can do a lot of good if you have people on the drop zone who, again, can be part of setting up that progression and understand what you're trying to accomplish.
Have a plan.
Plan's good.
Regardless of discipline, four-way, free fly, canopy, etc., what advice would you give to those trying to become one of the best in their field?
Know what you're getting yourself into.
And again, having a plan.
Well, the plan is essential, but it's funny to hear people say sometimes, I want to be a world champion. It's like, well, great. I mean, you can. It's just about anybody can if they really want to apply themselves to it. But then they don't want to back it up with what that's actually going to take. I want to be a world champion. All right, well, you better get a trailer, quit your job, borrow all sorts of money, and move to the drop zone. And, well, I don't want to do that. Well, how are you going to make 1,000 jumps a year? No, I want to be a world champion, but I'm only going to do 200 jumps a year. Well, your goals need to match what you're willing to commit.
Or your focus. If you want to be the best in free fly, then you seek out those people that you want to model after, and you want to make the sacrifices necessary to get to where you want to go.
It is, and then you can take that goal, but then you need to just take it and put it up on the shelf and go back to your plan. Well, if I'm going to get there, what's the first thing I have to do? What's the next step? How am I going to get there? What's the most efficient plan to get myself there? And I have some articles coming out in Parachutist which have a plan for four-way.
Really? Is that coming up very soon?
Yeah, they've been printing some of the articles, and they're still coming out, and I think one of them has, and it's just, there's many plans people could have, but it has a plan. Here's the plan for how to progress. If you're starting here, here's what to do with the first 10% of your jumps, the next 10%. And having very specific goals involved.
Now, I heard you mention today sometime that you have a blog or website up now with your own voice on it at this point. Is that true?
That doesn't have anybody else's voice, for better or for worse. I don't know.
Tell us a little bit about your new blog.
I just started a website, danbc.com or danbrodskychenfeld.com. It has some things from my book in it, and the blog has just basically got some tips of how to reach your own peak performance, overcoming obstacles, those types of things. And
do you think in the future that you'll include those articles that were in Parachuters as actual downloadable stuff, like just as resources? Because I can see, someone with your vision that after time you're going to have a lot of content on that site for people to learn from.
I guess I can do that, huh?
Yes.
As you know, websites to me are a pretty difficult thing to deal with. Yes. So,
well, you spend so much time in the airplane. How are you going to do that? Yeah. Lastly, from Brandon is, what's it like to be a world champ? How's that changed your life as being a world champ? How's it changed who you are on the drop zone?
I don't think it's changed it at all. It's winning the gold medal and winning the world championships itself was such a small part of the whole journey, the whole process. I remember after I dedicated myself to skydiving competition and to skydiving, started at the Nationals in 1983 was the first year I competed every year till we finally, until we finally won in 95. But all the way through there, one full-time team, we were living in our vans, we were eating peanut butter and jelly, we were doing everything we could do to possibly get the jumps in that we had to get. And finally, I remember we landed from the last jump in round 10 of the 1995 World Meet, and Jack Jeffries and Kirk Werner and Mark Kirkby and John Lemming, and we all got together and we won, and we looked at each other like, was that it? Am I still 5'8"? I thought for sure I'd be 6'2", by now, and it was the win itself. It's not as big a deal as people might think, and you know what? Neither is losing, for that matter.
Right. Because I have to ask you this. I'll make this last thing. I know you're really busy. I know you have to go. I really appreciate you being here. Your book. What, from your perspective as the author, it's your story, your background. What do you think somebody just coming into the sport, really kind of finding their way? And what I witness a lot is people come into the sport, and there's just so much going on, and there's so much to do. It kind of takes a while for them to kind of figure out what they really want to do. Do I want to do formation skydiving? Do I want to be a free flyer? And you can kind of try to do everything, but to be good at anything, you kind of got to focus. And your book covers this huge story. Like, what if someone who just got into skydiving read your book, what do you think a takeaway, some possible positive takeaways could be from that?
I didn't write it for skydivers in particular, but obviously it has a lot of skydiving in it. Skydivers will definitely relate to it on a different level than non-skydivers, but I tried to write it so non-skydivers would be able to understand it as well. And I think that they'll, more than anything, take away to question yourself on what is it you really want? What are the things that really turn you on the most? What are you the most inspired about? What are you the most passionate about? And from the heart, not I want to do that for some other reason, some other objective, not to impress people or to be cool, or what do you just love so much that you got to do more of it. And to encourage people to really find out what those things are, and whatever that is, take it and put yourself towards that and make the most out of that, and have a plan. If you really do want to be the best you can be at it, well, it's going to be a challenge. And there's going to be one obstacle after another that keeps you from getting there. But the challenge is what the fun is, and that's what makes it all worthwhile. And hopefully you'll get people to help figure out what it really is in their life. And it may make some people think, you know what, it's not skydiving at all. I was in skydiving for the wrong reason. And to other people, it might get them to quit their job, move into their van,
lose their house, lose their wife,
park on the drop zone.
Their job.
But hopefully it'll be the thing that they're really after, and something they really love.
Awesome. Well, congratulations with the book, and thank you very, very much for taking your time. Really, I know everybody's beat after these 4 days of hardcore jumping. Just so you guys know, out there in TV land, we did get a completion on the last day. They did 2 completions of the 75 way. It was absolutely amazing, even from the cameraman's point of view, to see this P3 raise these guys up and really make them strive and test them. It's really cool thing to see. So thank you very much, Dan. Really appreciate your time. Appreciate it. How cool was that?